Welcome to the Grand Prix Project podcast.
All right, welcome once again. Welcome once again to the Grand Prix Project. This is the F1 edition, Miami Grand Prix review with your host Andre Miller and the co-host Neil G,
Thanos.
aka.
Dude, stop giving people my government, man. Stop. Why you keep telling people my name? I'm supposed to be anonymous.
Last time I checked, you wasn't a criminal, bro. So
Yeah, but
might as well just give it up.
you know, it's the unknown, that the allure,
Or the mystique.
the mystique. Exactly, that's the word.
Yeah,
The mystic.
yeah, we want to start off this week. Once again, motorsport shows how dangerous it can be and unforgiving. So, we want to start off by sending our condolences to the two riders who passed away over the weekend, the BSB in Alton Park, which is Owen Jenner and Shane Richardson. We just want to send our heartfelt condolences here from the Grand Prix Project podcast to their friends, family, and the motorsport community as well, right? Every now and then, motorsport can really bite you. And it just reminds us that these guys come out and they put their life on the line in the name of entertainment for us as viewers and fans. And once again, it struck and tragedy. And it turns out to be tragic. And we never want to see that in motorsports, but it's one of them things that we could try and make things as safe as possible, but there's always a possibility.
Yeah, the risk is always there, and I think they all know that the moment they step inside of the cockpit or they put a foot over that bike, the likelihood is there's a possibility that they might not make it home to the friends, family, and loved ones. Which is kind of, I have this ritual that I do every Grand Prix before the race goes off. I just say a silent prayer, just like, you know what, watch over all the riders and drivers so they can complete the race in our entertainment, but at the same time they can make it home safely to the friends, family members, and loved ones. Because like you said, it's a dangerous sport. It's our entertainment, but we'd like to see them make it back home safely. And again, it's a tragic incident, because yesterday I was looking on TNT Sport to see if I could find the race, because it showed me on the schedule that race 2 BSB Alton Park was on. And I was like, okay, so I went to TNT, the channel, and I'm like, I can't find it. I'm like, why is it I can't find the race? What's going on? So I went online and I checked the result. I saw the result. It says Liam Haslam won race 2. But that's all I could say, nothing else. So this morning I woke up, I was in a chat group with my girls, Nilly, Crystal, and Roxy. And they posted the crash story of it. And I was like, damn, that's why I couldn't find it. And I was like, yo, this is terrible, man. This is terrible. And it's bike riders who are going the most. Because if you look at the last couple of years, it's Isle of Man. You have other junior racing categories, because was it some 14-year-old kid died last year, I believe it was. So yeah,
that kid died recently as well in Spain as well. So
yeah, I think that's the one I'm referring to. So yeah, man, it's tragic and it's sad, and but they know the risk, we all know the risk, but we still want them to come home alive.
And at this point is when you realize that even as fans, the fans, who support different riders, drivers, it's time like this you realize it's not even that serious. Be that
Exactly,
right?
you know what I mean. But but at the same time, it's a bit, the online debate between fans. It's just normal
Yeah.
tribalism,
Yeah.
sports tribalism. But one
Yeah.
thing we do know as a community, when there's tragedy, it doesn't matter what base you're with. There's always a gathering where everybody comes together and like, you know
Always
what,
love.
always, yeah, because you never want to see someone pass, especially doing something that they love, and at the
Yeah.
same time or entertainment. So
Yeah, so yeah, my condolences to Owen Jenner and Shane Richardson family. No, our heartfelt condolences goes out to you from the Grand Prix Project.
Yep.
All right, and let's get into it. Let's get into it. Let's get into this race, man.
Miami, another sprint weekend, race weekend again, and a surprise pole sitter. Damn.
You mean for the sprint?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Sprint weekend, race weekend. These things can throw up the unknown. And boy, no one saw that pole sitter coming. He just popped up. He just popped up from out of nowhere, like, yo, 18-year-old Kimi Antonelli. He now officially owns the record for the youngest pole sitter in Formula One. Even though the record for the youngest pole sitter in an F1 race still remains with Seb, but I think Kimi has another two. I think Kimi has 2 years, or believe, in which he can break that record. Because I think Seb took the record when he was 20 or something like that.
I think around about 20.
Yeah. So, but what we saw from Kimi in that lap was what reasons why Toto Wolff and everybody rate him that highly. Because and it's the first weekend where he looked like he genuinely had more pace than George. And again, to just pop up from nowhere and just sprung a surprise like that on everybody, like, yo, well done, kid. Well done.
He did his thing, man. He did his thing. He's showing why, as you said, why they decided to catapult him into F1 so quick. Right.
Yeah, I mean, Max came in at what, 17, I believe it was. So
17.
Yeah, so why not? If you're good enough, you're old enough. That's how I view it. And because if you look at his performance through the whole entire year so far, he's been pretty much obviously the top rookie class of the rookie field, along with Isaac Ajar. And he's put in some good performances. He's had some bad luck along the way, but in terms of with the races, but when you look at him, I think he's slowly starting to get up to speed with the requirements of the sport and so on.
All the rookies, he's having a perfect season so far.
In what sense?
In terms of he's the only one that hasn't put it in the wall yet.
Hold on. He hasn't crashed. Well, he did. He got lucky though in Australia.
but
he got lucky
when everyone was, even when veterans alike was just all over the place in Australia, he kept it together.
Yeah. Where did he finish in Australia? Was it fourth? I believe he finished in Australia.
So he
fourth or fifth.
So of all the rookies so far in races, he hasn't made a mistake just yet. A mistake that paid dearly, I should say.
Yeah, he finished fourth in Australia.
He's finishing all the races. So the more laps on this, and that's the thing, man. As a rookie, if you could just continue finishing the races, because that's more lap under your belt. That's just lap after lap after lap, right?
Mm-hmm.
That he's putting under his belt. So he's only going to get better.
Because he's only what? George is on 93 points. He's on 48. So he's what? 45 points behind George. And he had a non-point scoring in Bahrain. So I think he's right where Mercedes wants him to be.
Yeah. I think he's doing a great job.
Yeah.
I think he's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it turns out that Lando won the sprint.
Okay. Hey, I don't know what it is with Lando and Miami and virtual safety car, because let's be honest. What's it? Oscar was walking that race. You know what I mean? He was on definitely going to win that race had it not been for that the VSC coming out at the wrong time for him. You know, so but even that at the start, Kimi again, he somewhat had I think at the start of that race we saw the inexperience of Antonelli in that race as well because he had already lost the corner. And I think he was trying to hang it on around the outside. And given that the track was wet, I think he probably, if he had kind of like backed off and just like, okay, I've lost the corner, let me just give up the corner.
Have maintained second.
Yeah, at least maintain second. There was a possibility he could have finished on the podium in that sprint race, hands down, because, you know, what did he fail to? He finished, where did he finish? He finished the sprint. Where did he finish? I'm trying to find the results for him. Antonelli. Yeah, he finished 7th. Well, obviously, that was after all the penalties that was dished out to. Who got penalties? I think Albon got a penalty. Lawson got a penalty. Albon, Lawson, and Beerman all got penalties, which basically pushed him into the points. So I think if he had actually just kind of like backed out, give Lando the position, it was evident he was never going to hold off the McLarens, no matter what he did. So I think Oscar would have even gotten him anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was a bit of an inexperience for him, but I think he'll learn overall. But as going back to the Lando, though, I mean, that guy and virtual safety cars in Australia, in Miami seems to go hand in hand because that's how he won his first race last year. I believe that was his very first race win, wasn't it? No, was it? No, he won more races. No, I believe that was his very first ever race win. Yeah, so you know the race was not. I think the race wasn't really all that eventful until it started to dry up. And then you saw that Red Bull decided to pit Yuki first. Obviously, he's the test dummy for Max because they want to see how the track conditions were before they decide on pitting him. Lewis was having a turbo race. Car was slow as hell. Tires were going off. And I think he made a strategy call at the right time because had he done one more lap, he would have been passed by, was it Sainz? I believe it was Sainz or Albon who was behind him. I can't remember. He was definitely going to get passed by them, but called his strategy at the right time. They wanted to put him on actually medium tires.
Correct too.
Exactly, because when they said box for mediums, and he went, no, softs, mate, softs. He was pretty adamant that I don't want no medium tires, mate. And I think he was right because in conditions like this, you want the softer compound because it gets up to temperature quicker. Because remember, Tsunoda pitted before him, but Tsunoda's lap times, he was pretty much matching the McLarens. And it wasn't until sector 2, that he kind of like his pace really jumped up. By that time, Lewis on his soft tires were fully up to temp already, and it was just like seconds a lot faster than everybody. So,
And as I said, we're probably going to do a whole episode just on Ferrari and their foolishness. But just to touch on it briefly, the fact that there was that small amount of laps left, right? So little laps left in that sprint. And to think that Ferrari was going to put him on a medium when he's got a soft is just crazy to me.
But in saying that, others went on medium as well. Because I believe the only people who were on soft tires was Lewis and Lando. I think there was someone else. I can't remember who it was, but because Piastri was on medium and Lando was on soft tires. So only pretty much only those two went for the soft. And again, and I think it would have been interesting to see how the race would have finished had the there've been more laps,
Yeah.
and had the VSC been at the track been cleared again for that. Obviously, who spun and put it in the wall. Who was it who crashed? Was it the geriatric guy? So Alonso crashed.
I think was it him that brought out the safety car?
Yeah, where he had that contact with was it Lawson?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had that contact with Lawson. So I believe he was the one that crashed, and that brought out Aston Martin. Yeah, accident. So and then that brought out the VSC, which at the same time then you had that chaos in the pit lane with Max getting an unsafe release, running into the side of Antonelli, who
Really?
for quick, and that's what messed up Antonelli's race, because that incident, he didn't pit that point at that time. He had to, because of the hit, he had to basically, if he had carried on, he would have run over his mechanics. So quick thinking, he kind of just like went back in the pit lane, the fast lane, and just like went wrong again and pitted. That's why he fell so far down the grid. Okay. Because the contact with Max meant like he didn't get a chance to pit. And I saw an angle, my guy Wolfpack on his Instagram shared a video, and it showed the overhead. And I swear to you, the Red Bull mechanic, the one that presses the button to give the green light, he was walking backwards, not looking where he was going, right? And I swear to you, if he had made one more step, he'd have walked right into the path of the Mercedes of Anthony. He was that close to getting run over because he wasn't actually paying attention to, and I think that's why he released Max. Because he didn't actually realize what was going on, but didn't see Kimi coming down the pit lane and released him right into his path. Max got a 10-second penalty.
Yeah. No, but pit lane, you gotta be on your P's and Q's at all time, man.
Because you look at them driving down the pit lane and you think they're going what? I think the pit lane speed limiter is probably like, depending on the circuit, say it's like 60 kph or 80 kph. Even 60 kph, they look like they're barely moving. But at 60 kph of your road car, you hit someone at 60 kph, they're going to get a hell of a hit.
That could kill them, bro.
Exactly.
Because you got to remember, in a situation like that, it's not even the initial hit, it's how you land, right?
Exactly.
You land bad, but yeah. So, yeah, congrats to Kimi on his first pole position. Congrats to Lando on his win on the sprint.
And Lewis yet again another sprint podium.
Yeah, so that's a good one. So yeah, let's move over to Piastri, bro. Piastri. Piastri wins his fourth race of the season, man, and he increased his championship lead.
That's his third. That's his third win on the bones. Which, oddly enough, this was a crazy stat. I heard Crofty mention. That was the first time a McLaren driver has won 3 races since Mick Hakkinen.
I think he said 28 years?
1998. I believe he said. Mick Hakkinen. Like, and when you consider that, dude, you've had Lewis Hamilton drive for you, and he has never won 3 races on the bounce.
On the bounce.
For them. I'll tell you where it was. No, it wasn't 98.
Sure, it wasn't 99 or so. When was it?
It's probably 99. Let me just check because
yeah, guys, 28 years. They said, right?
Yeah, he won. No, it wasn't 99 either.
So when was it?
That's odd because Mick has never won. Mick has only ever won 2 on the bounce. Yeah, he's never won 3 on the bounce. That's odd. Hold on. Yeah, he has never won 3 on the bounce. It couldn't have been him. So unless they're going back to the Senna days, that could only that's the only way I could see this, because I'm looking at the results now, going back to 90, 98, 99. Mick won back-to-back in Spain and Canada, and that was it. 98, he won back-to-back in Australia, Brazil, Spain, Mexico, Australia and Germany, Luxembourg, Japan. That's it. Well, I'd have to research it anyway, but they said it's the first time a McLaren driver has won 3 races on the bounce for that long. And again, like you said, it's crazy when you consider that McLaren had Lewis Hamilton for that many, 2007 to 12, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, but the most competitive car that Lewis drove for McLaren was the 07-08 cars, right?
Mm-hmm. I said the 2012 car was a good car as well, but we know how that one panned out. Yeah. Well, Oscar still though, man. Again, that he got that opportunity because again, Max's driving standards needs to be examined. I don't care what nobody says. That incident with him and Lando, he basically pushed Lando off the track. And I know they said he had a somewhat of a snap overstaker. You could see his car just violently move to the right, which forced Lando to move to his right, and that's how he ended up running off track. And up pops Oscar into I think he moved up into P2. Yeah. And
okay. But this is where they're getting it from. The Mick Hakkinen stat. So it's over 2 seasons.
Which 2 seasons?
So
it's only 90
in the 97 going into 98.
Yeah, but 97 Hakkinen. Yes, he won European Grand Prix in 97. And then it moves over and then he won
Brazil.
Yeah.
So
the opening 2 races in 98. Okay, cool. So it's over 2 seasons.
Over 2 seasons, which I think Piastri one is probably more impressive.
Yeah, because it happens in the same year.
Yep. So yeah, let's talk about Piastri a little bit more, man. I always said that his issues that he was having is like what we just said about Kimi Antonelli, right? Inexperience in certain situations. He had tire issue. He had issues managing tires last year, and he had qualifying issues too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it made sense because he's young in the game, right? And yeah, this is
that, and it also could have been down to the car as well. He could have been having issues again where he's
but I'm just putting on the fact that what he's doing now, right? I'm comparing it to his teammate.
Yeah,
what they were both doing. So, in terms of like when Lando could manage the tires, Piastri had issues, right? When Lando could qualify better. So what that's telling me, right? I wouldn't put it on the car per se, because if the car eats tires, it doesn't matter who's driving it. It's going to heat its tires, right?
Well, not necessarily. I think it again.
If a car fundamentally got tire issues, it's going to be hard for it, because that's just the DNA of the car is just going to heat its tires, right?
I don't know. I'm somewhat in disagreement, because how you manage your tires is also it's a skill set.
Okay, so which is why what I was saying, that I put it down to Oscar's inexperience more than say the car.
Yeah.
Right. So now that he's figured out qualifying, he's figured out tire management. Now he's arrived.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, he's been consistent. If you remove Australia from, his the only blotch on his record this year. If not for that, he would have been on the podium in every single race.
And Australia wasn't even just a situation of him just straddling down the road and mess it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether they arrive in the skills first. So it could have happened to anyone, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, because his teammate went tracking as well. So it's not like, right? So it's consistency that he's showing in terms of just how he goes through the weekend, is qualifying in the race. He's doing a great job, right? And which is why I'm thinking momentum is like a drug, man. And the more the more he gets one up on his teammate and one up on Max, it means confidence is building.
The more he's going to get confident. Because if you look at his, like I said, if you remove Australia from it, he's been on the podium in every race, even in the sprints.
And
he's not missed the podium.
That's how you put a championship winning season together.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Because he was on the podium. Was he on the podium in Japan? Because after Australia was, let me just get back to my results page. China, yeah. So he was on the podium in China. Yes, he was on, exactly. So he's been on the podium in every race. China, Japan, Bahrain. He won Bahrain because that's where his win streak started. He's been on the podium in the sprint races as well, 2 sprint races. So he's been, what's that, 5 podiums?
That's a championship.
3 wins.
Yeah, man. That when you look at it, you're like, that's how you put a championship winning season together.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm happy for him. And I think he could manage the pressure. I think if it comes down to it, I think he's super cool, he's super calm, and I think he can handle pressure well. Just when you look at it, his demeanor, right? You could just tell that he's a kid who's like, okay, bring it on, I'm gonna absorb it.
Yeah, and if you listen to his radio messages as well, he never sounds like he's flustered. He's always calm, and his responses are always calm and measured. So he's totally in control. And at the same time, you know, those messages are he's able to give those messages because most of the times he's out in front, cruising.
And that's the thing. He's got, and that's one of the things, man. In this motor racing or in any sport, right? Whether that be football, American football, basketball, it just comes a time whenever the management puts that team around you. In F1, when they put that car under you, you just got to be ready. Because guess what? You don't get an opportunity often.
Exactly.
It could be a one-off.
Which is why I said, you know, when we talk about Lando, and I said in the past, I said this might be his best opportunity to win a championship, because we don't know how situations are going to be next year when the new regs come in place.
Yep.
So if you have that opportunity, seize it now. And, you know, he talked about it last year, coming into this year, saying based on how he performed last year, etc., you know, he has, and how he has an appetite now for the championship, because, you know, he somewhat challenged for it. So now he's ready for it. So, but at the same time, Oscar is not going to make his job easy for him.
Yeah,
and he shouldn't.
Teammate first, bro.
Exactly. And right now, given how Oscar's performing, and I think, here what it is. Lando just needs a bit of something to go his way one weekend. And I think that changes the momentum for him. Because you qualified him this weekend. You qualified him. It's the first time he's all qualified him since, oh God, when was the last? Because I believe Japan was the last time you qualified him. Let me just double check so I don't mess things up. Oscar was on pole in Bahrain. Lando started 6th. In Saudi Arabia, Oscar all qualified him again. Where did Lando start? Lando started 10th. Damn, he started 10th in Saudi Arabia. Damn. In Miami again. So that was the first time Lando's out-qualified him since Japan. And you felt like, you know, maybe this is what Lando needed. He just needed that one rubber to green. But then, you know, we know what happened at the start, which we'll get onto in our next topic. So I think Lando just needs that one thing to go his way, and he just has a clean weekend, because he's only had one clean weekend so far this year, and that's Australia.
Yeah, and which is why. So this is the issue with that, right? The one weekend where you qualifies him, right?
Mm-hmm.
It turns out to be his teammates still ending up winning, right?
Exactly.
And the safety car saved Lando's bacon on Saturday too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of that should be on his mind right now. Like, man, even when I qualified, like things just like, right?
That's what I'm
Lando
saying.
needs. Lando seems like he needs 3 good weekends. One ain't
Hey,
gonna cut it.
true,
One is not gonna cut it.
true. But if he gets
A
one,
good weekend for Lando, right? A
Hmm?
good weekend for Lando could mean McLaren 1-2, right?
yeah,
And that's still with your teammate behind you, right?
yeah. But if that's the case, he's still gonna gain 7 points on him.
Mhm.
So for him, that's a positive. As I'm saying, so he just needs one weekend where everything just runs smoothly, and I think from then he can build. Because again, he qualified him,
Mhm.
right? Had the start, and without what happened at turn 1, 2, turn 3, whatever, 2, 3, Lando would have probably, if Lando had finished that lap in second, he would have won that race. Let's be honest. Because if you look at his pace after his pit stop, right? Because if I remember correctly, he pitted under the VSC, did he not? Yeah, I think he pitted under the VSC. Yeah, they're double stacked. Because once Oscar got past Max, which Max made him work for that position, let's be honest. And that small fight between Max and Oscar allowed Lando to close the gap, because I believe the gap before that was about 4.5 seconds. Yeah. So when he finally closed that gap and Oscar got past Max and pretty much dropped him like a bad habit, again, Max made Lando work for that position. Yeah, go on.
Wouldn't it be the same if situation if Piastri just rolled up behind Max, went past him, he probably would have disappeared up the road either way.
I don't get you.
In terms of like, even though the fight, because the initial fight is what brought Lando back close to them, right?
Yep.
I'm saying, what if Piastri had just rolled up behind Max, one shot, go? He would have still disappeared up the road. And then that gap, so...
Well, to be honest, Piastri was behind Max for a good chunk of time until, I don't know, Max tires probably started to go off. And that's when, because at one point, he wasn't even the DRS window for Max. So he was there for a couple hours.
Piastri had rolled up behind Max, didn't have to spend that much time trying to pass him.
Yeah, he would have, because the McLaren were... Over the weekend, this weekend, McLaren were about a second a lap faster than everybody else. They weren't even in the same continent in terms of performance, because within 3 laps, Oscar pulled 8 seconds on Max. 3 laps. You know, the last time I saw something like that, barring 2014, when the two Mercedes went at it, and that was the first time we actually saw what the Mercedes had in store. Within 10 laps, they pulled 20 seconds on the grid. He pulled 8 seconds in 3 laps. That was frightening. And I think we had the discussion in my space after the race where people were saying Lando's racecraft, etc., etc. And I somewhat, okay, his racecraft might need some work, but I think it also was a disservice to Max, because as we know, Max will not let you pass easily. Max will go into war with a butter knife against somebody who has an AK-47. That's the sort of person he is. So he made Lando work for that position, and Lando did take the position and drove away from him. And if you watch the race, especially in the last thing when they finally swapped tires on the VSC, I think Oscar had like 8 to 9 seconds lead. He won that race by about 3 to 4 seconds. You look at Lando's pace in that race, it was absolutely relentless. It was relentless.
Yes. But we also know that Piastri didn't need to display that type of pace.
Yeah, but okay, true. He finished 4.6 seconds, but there was also a message that went out to Piastri that if he had more pace, it's time for him to pick up the pace. Because Lando was coming at him at one point.
In his post race, he said there was one point, I think, in one of his stints where he wasn't as comfortable with the tires, but he said after that he figured it out and he just managed the race.
Fair enough. But then again, like I said, he was told to kind of like up the pace if you have more pace, because the way Lando was coming back at him. But and again, Zach Brown did say he felt like Oscar was out front managing his pace. So
you could tell, because when you look at it, the way Lando was eating into that time, I don't think he's that faster than Piastri in the same car. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I think
when I look at it, I'm like, Piastri was, even if he had little, at some point he may have not felt comfortable in tire, which is what he said in his post race. You also got to remember that Lando is going through those tires to even plug that gap. So probably by the time he arrived, there's probably nothing he could have done anyway, because them tires.
I don't know, because the McLaren tires, McLaren and tires this year, boy, it's just a different league.
It is. But I'm pitching it against the same car, so I could tell that Piastri was doing something. Because remember, we said this: you don't have to win the race by 20 seconds, man. You just need to win it.
Exactly, half a second, you win. A win's a win,
and that's what he did.
Right?
Yeah. No, but that's Piastri, man. Dude is doing a great job. He's got championship pedigree. He just needs to keep this momentum going, and he'll be all right. He just needs to just keep doing what he's doing. Keep his head down. Keep driving. Keep doing the best that he can in that car, because he's got the car to win the championship.
Yep. And I think what's going to be critical is how he deals if he gets to a point whereby he encounters a Lando moment, in the sense of having a difficult period like Lando's been having since Australia. How does he deal with that? Sorry, that's going to be crucial as well.
And that's the thing, right? From the outside looking in, I never met the guy. For some reason, to me, I just feel like he's equipped. I just feel like he's equipped to deal with those type of situations. I think he's got the mental battle to deal with those type of situations.
Fair enough, but right. Like I said, let's see how.
Because he hasn't shown me anything for me not to think that he's a ruthless operator and a calculated dude and a strong dude when it comes on to certain situations. He hasn't shown me anything for me to think otherwise.
Fair enough, but like I said, let's see if those moments arise, how does he deal with it? Because I think if Lando just has like one or two clean weekends where he, goes ahead and he wins those races, Lando then regains that confidence, and then the momentum swings to Lando's direction now. How does Oscar respond to that? Because I think over qualifying and the race, I still think Lando has the small edge over him pace-wise. I still think Lando has that small edge, but it's not a massive gap, especially in qualifying. I think between them, it's probably like a 10th. So it swings around about. But I still think Lando has just that small edge. He just needs a clean weekend.
Ultimately, it comes down to this. The clean weekend, it's going to start with, man, is qualifying. He just needs to qualify in front of his teammate.
But like you said, he qualified in front of him over the weekend and still finished behind.
Man, Lando does get, Let's see what he does.
Let's see what he does.
Right now, Oscar is the man.
But I think it's good, definitely. Oscar, and you have to give it to Oscar. He's performing flawlessly. Yeah, and I think, but it's going to be I think we're going to be in for a good season with these two. I think, and you're still going to throw Max in the mix because Max isn't going nowhere.
Yeah,
He's
all
not
Red
going to
Bull
be
needs to do
known.
is if they could give him some upgrades that puts him in the fight, he'll do the rest.
You know what? Looking at the pace of that McLaren, I don't see what Red Bull can do. I don't see, because he's been on back-to-back poles and hasn't won none of the races. That's the first time in his career that's ever happened to him.
But the thing is, right, the good thing is that he's only 16 points behind Lando.
Is that a good thing?
Huh?
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, because if he beats Lando once, because the thing is, right, that's not a big points gap, bro. How many races gone?
6. So we have 18 left. And if you count the sprints, I'll probably just say 20.
Yeah,
or
so
19.
so if you think about Max last year,
Mhm.
in the Red Bull, right, compared to where the McLaren's at, because McLaren's, they've got the car so far this season, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at the points gap, Red Bull is actually doing a good job.
Yeah, but I think the difference here is when the Red Bull had that performance edge over everybody last year, no one was there to challenge them.
Because was it because Max also had a DNF in that as well, right?
When? Yeah, in Australia.
In Australia.
But he won 6 of the first 7 races last year. And at that point, there was really no one there to challenge him. It's a different situation now with the McLarens.
It's actually the same. It's just that McLaren split their wins across 2 drivers.
No, I still can't see it's the same because again, the race that Max didn't win last year wasn't based on performance. It was because he had a DNF. This year, the race he won in Japan was based on performance and track layout because any other track I don't think he would have beaten both McLarens that weekend anyway. But like I said, the point here is compared to last year when Max had the advantage at the start of the season, there was no one there to challenge him. None whatsoever. So he had a free run. The McLarens didn't turn up until Miami. So if the McLaren was there from the start of this, that McLaren that turned up to Miami was there from the start of the season, I don't think it would have played. It would have probably played out like how it's playing out now.
Yeah, and my rebuttal to that is that if you look at the season so far, 6 races, McLaren won 5.
Yep.
So that's what I'm saying. The only difference is that because McLaren split their wins across 2 drivers. If Lando or Oscar had won all those races, leading up to it would have looked like what Red Bull had last season, at the start of the season, minus the DNF. Because if you look at it team to team, Red Bull did 5 out of 6, 6 out of 7.
7, yeah.
McLaren is currently 5 out of 6.
Yeah.
So I'm saying.
So you're looking at in terms of the win distribution, not the points.
So so the difference is Lando as Piastri or vice versa, they're challenging each other, right? Was what's his name? Perez was nowhere close to Max last year.
Okay. So you're looking at it from the points the wins distribution. Okay, because I was looking at it more from a points perspective. Because was it 32 points covers the top 3?
Which is why I said if one of the McLaren drivers had won all those 5, then we'd have had a different picture points wise.
Yeah.
It would have looked like what Max had last year.
Max had last year because Max is on what 99. Yeah, so it's 32 points. Basically, it's 36 points that separates the top 4. Let's not forget George is there as well.
Right. And the thing is, and this is where McLaren got to be super careful, right? The fact that Max is hanging on roundabout, right? The points gap isn't crazy. So McLaren really got to manage their drivers this year because if they make any, if they do any form of blue and blue, if they do any form of blue and blue, right? Well, blue and blue is like a military term for those who are listening, for friendly fire. If McLaren has any form of friendly fire, all of a sudden Red Bull is back in the game, right? And which is why they have to manage this thing carefully, this year. Right?
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, I'm just looking at like McLaren, the fact that Red Bull is just lingering there, even though McLaren got the more dominant car, they're just roundabout there. McLaren got to manage this very closely, and they got to be careful because any form of blue on blue or friendly fire, it could disrupt their season, right? So they really got to be careful and manage this down to a T.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think they just have to let the drivers them work it on until they get to a point whereby it's mathematically impossible for one driver to win, and then they can call it off. But given what we're looking at right now, I don't know. I can't see. It's going to take something miraculous for Red Bull to win this championship, either championship. And again, for Max to win the championship, it would have to come down to like a 2007 season for him to win the championship, where the McLaren drivers basically duffed up each other. Boom, Kimi comes through the door, takes the championship. So, but let's see what happens.
This is why I said that, because once again, they say history always repeats itself, bro.
Yeah,
which is why
sometimes
they got to manage it. They got to really manage it, because
sometimes
they always got to look at it like, they always got to treat it like one shot. Right? They've put in so much work since the last time they won was at 08.
Yeah, drivers 08.
The drivers, yeah. So they got to really, really, really manage this thing well to take it home this year.
Yeah, and I think, again, they have the fastest car, so it shouldn't be a difficult task for them, but, you know, stranger things have happened.
Yep. But yeah, that's the McLaren situation, championship. We're looking at now Lando's situation with Max. What's your take on that situation?
Personally, I think Max forced him off track.
Let me ask you this before you even go any further, right? Do you feel that way? Is that an unbiased take?
Yeah. I mean, because if you watch, they still haven't showed us Max's onboard, which is akin to what happened in Brazil 2021 when he forced Lewis off, and they pretty much said, "Oh, we don't have the footage of his onboard," which is kind of odd. So we didn't even see that. We saw Lando's onboard footage of the incident, but we've not seen Max. But if you look based on the guidelines, right, it says if you have your front tire in line with the mirror of the car you're trying to overtake on the inside, then you're pretty much the corner is yours. And if you watch the start, Max outbraked himself. He locked up, ran a bit deep into the corner. Lando did the switchback and had the drive coming out the corner. Now, obviously there's a slight left kink there, but it's not massive, like, you know, it's a massive turn. It's just a slight kink. But the next corner coming up is the long right-hander of turn 2, which would then takes you round to the turn 3-4 complex. Now, based on that guidelines, this is how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it's a right-hander coming up next. Lando was pretty much where his car is supposed to be. And based on the guidelines, then Max should have given him more room. Now, the argument I believe they used was it's that snap, because if you watch it from Oscar's onboard, you'll see Max car there was actually space, but then Max car just violently moves to the right, which then basically forced Lando to take avoiding actions and ran off track. To me, if that's the case, then Max wasn't fully in control of his car. So why did you not, you know, he deserved a penalty for that, from my point of view, based on what the guidelines says that what the guidelines you need to follow to determine whether the corner is yours or not. Lando was far enough alongside him. Even Brundle in commentary said, yeah, he shoved him off track. But the stewards they noted it, and then within no time they came back and said, no actions necessary. And I'm like, that pretty much ruined Lando's race. So, and Lando spoke about it after and said, you know what? Max ruined his own race by doing that, because, and that's who Max is. And again, these guys are going to realize that Max's attitude to racing is, we either crash, I'm not going to let you pass. It's either, it's crash or bust, basically. So when you're getting past him, you have to make sure that the move, is as clean as precise as possible, just like what Lando eventually did going up to, I believe it's turn 11, at the end of that long DRS. Because I think he tried it on the outside and he kind of like forced him off again. And this time he did it up on the inside and made the move cleanly. That's the only way you're going to get past Max, because, like I said, he's going to fight his corner tooth and nail. You listen to his race engineer, once Lando came up behind him, he said, like, yo, make him work for that position. And he made him work for it. But I think he forced him off track. And if you're going to use the argument that he had a snap of oversteer, then you weren't in control of your car. I don't see how that's a mitigating circumstance.
Because oversteer doesn't mean you're not in control.
No, that's not oversteer. He didn't have an oversteer. It's similar to what Lewis had at that same corner in his qualifying lap. He went to apply the throttle, and the car just obviously, I think it kind of like wheel spin, and it just kind of like snapped. So he had to correct it. So it wasn't oversteer.
Yeah. So in a situation like that, I wouldn't say it wasn't, because that could happen to anyone.
Yeah, but at the same time, you could look at it and say, well, maybe he applied the throttle much harder than he would have in a normal circumstance if he was in front, because Lando was there, and by doing that created the problem.
You still can't. Yeah, that's because the thing is, applying the throttle, right, is ultimately what he feels under the car, and he's trying to say, if I put my foot down, he's expecting it to grip, and at that point, you don't know if it's going to happen. Or not. Yeah, so but I don't think not in control of your car would be you barreling it down, brake late, and the car is you're just a passenger at that point.
Well, he was somewhat of a passenger at that point.
Yeah, but snap anything, any driver, you could snap. Racing a car, motorcycle, you could get those snap situations where it's like you apply the throttle and it just doesn't do what you think it was gonna do, right? So
and it doesn't grip up. It's an instant loss of grip, and plus you have to remember it was it wet? No, it wasn't. It wasn't wet. It was pretty much it was a green track as well.
Yeah, so that's racing. I would say it was out of control.
Well, fair enough. No, I'm saying, fair enough. But I think in that moment, Lando deserved more space, and he was somewhat shoved off the track, and that pretty much put him on the back foot, because he fell down. I think he fell down to fourth, or some. Let me just check, see where he fell down in the race.
I know I see checking out. This is I don't really have any problem with Max, right?
He fell down to sixth.
The thing is with Max, and I always say this, I say this even in your spaces, Max, his team, they're always gonna toe the rules, right? And there's only two things when racing Max. There's two things. He's always gonna thread the rules to the thinnest margins, right? Whereas it creates a conversation. Was it borderline? Was it over the top? Or wasn't it, right? Max racing always sparks this type of conversation, like in the racing sphere, right? And there's two ways. If he's over the top and they deem it illegal what he's doing, it's up to the governing body to stop it, or the stewards to penalize him accordingly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you're gonna have to have someone who races him just like he races, and he's gonna realize that actually, right? Because if drivers continue to race Max and baby whilst racing, Max is not gonna stop. He's gonna push you wide. He's gonna push you off track. He's gonna do all sort of crazy stuff, right? The moment you get a driver who's like, okay, because the problem with Max now, not leading the championship, right? He's not in that driver's seat because it could be, when you look at it, like, okay, I'm leading the championship by 25 points or 30 points. If I'm in a championship fight with you and you're 30 points behind me and we both crash, that's one race. Whereas like that's one race off the calendar and I'm closer to the championship.
Yeah. It doesn't affect him if he's leading the championship, but no, he's not leading the championship. He's not going to race you any differently. He's still going to race you the same way as if he was leading the championship.
So to race Max, you got to have the same mentality as Max. You got to I'm willing to fight you, bro.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The reason why a lot of people are a bit annoyed with this, some of his tactics as well, is, again, the sport isn't willing to punish him when he oversteps the line. And that's the problem. When he does oversteps the line and he gets punished, we see what the reaction is. We saw what happened in Mexico last year when he got the penalty, how he reacted. We've seen, so it's kind of like, where else he got a penalty this year? We saw how he reacted in Jeddah when he got the penalty. You overtook someone off the track. The rule states you cannot overtake off the track. It's pretty much black and white. It's a nailed down penalty, right? And they had the opportunity to address that and swap position, which they should have done behind the safety car. But they decided, no, we're not going to do it because, again, Red Bull operates on the mandate that they don't feel like anyone can punish them.
Is that what it is, though? Because personally, probably I would do the same thing.
Do what?
I guess Lando gave the position back this weekend because he thought, well, I have the car, I'm sure I could pass.
Yeah, but Lando overtook him off track. So Lando gave the position back.
Right? But this is what I'm saying to you, right?
Uh-huh.
I could see how Red Bull operates and why they would say, let the stewards make that decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now you got to look at it where track position is king, right? And they're the understanding like, okay, we're probably going to get a 5-second penalty, but we probably could drive up the road and mitigate that, right? Cancel that out.
True.
So I could see when they operate from that level of like, I'm not giving it, if the stewards don't say switch the position or it's far too gone to be like 5 seconds penalty, hey Max, you got to drive off, you got to pull a 5 seconds gap, right? So I could see their argument as to why they operate. I don't think they're cheating. I don't think that's just how they operate. They look at it different. Like, hey,
because again, the sport allows them to operate in that manner. Because again, the sport has not actually governed it properly. Because if you go before I go back to that, and I think this is why the penalty should be more than 5 seconds. Because if you have a fast car, you can mitigate the 5-second penalty, but it's harder to mitigate. It's harder to mitigate a 10-second penalty.
Or a 15 seconds.
Exactly. So in a situation...
You have to make it a situation where like whenever that happens, your first reaction is to give the position back.
Exactly.
Because you know the penalty that's going to come
is very severe.
It's severe. So once again, Red Bull is going to toe that line and that rule, and it's up to the
governing body, fair enough,
to change this.
And again, and this is why the racing guidelines are in place, because of Max. This is why the guidelines is it's been put in place because of him. And if you go back to 2021, Karun did a compilation video showing the amount of times he forced Lewis off track, and no point was he penalized.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, we know that the McLaren is a rocket ship, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also know that a lot of times we see stuff on the weekend, we see it in practice, and then it comes to the race and it pans out totally different, right?
Okay.
So I'm looking at it like, what if it that panned out whereas like Lando, so because Lando decided to give the position back, right?
Yeah, this was obviously you're not talking about the start of the race. This was when he pulled up to the back of Max. Yeah. And I think he overtook him. It was a similar situation to Liam Lawson and Alonso.
And I'm gonna say this just to see where Red Bull operates from. Lando gives that position back, right? A safety car, right? Now Max pits. Different set of tires. Now Lando is still behind him. Now the Red Bull is just switching on these tires, bro. Now his pace is just ridiculous. McLaren is fast, but Red Bull and these new set of tires is just super quick. Now he's stuck behind him, can't pass him. The race finishes that way. Which is why I see how Red Bull operates, because now you're like, giving positions back without the steward, we're not going to do that, because it could turn out where it's like you lose a position by, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but the thing is,
and that's how Red Bull operates. Not saying that it's the most ethical way, but I understand it, because at the end of the day, it's up to the governing body to say, the steward to say, hey, give the position back. Or the punishment for not giving the position is so severe, whereas you will not think twice about giving a position back.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You see what I'm saying?
Because the stewards or the governing body put themselves in this position when they said what they're going to do is, in a situation like that, they'll leave it up to the team to make the decision of swapping drivers. But if they don't, right, then it would be referred to the stewards. I'm thinking, I've always had a problem with that, because I'm like, why are you leaving it up to the teams to make that decision? You're the referee. You tell them give the position back, and that's final. But in saying that, while Lando gave the position back up as well, again, it's still early in the race. And he had the pace that he knew, basically he knows that he can overtake him again. So it didn't really bother him. It didn't really make a difference to him either way, because eventually he was going to get past him. But
yeah, you're right. But when I say that, I mean like just in general, like it could be, and it doesn't have to be Miami, right? It's just about Red Bull versus McLaren, but to say Lando, Max versus Lando, while Max would be like, I'm not giving it back. Hey, you got to take a penalty. Okay, I'm just gonna fire up these tires. I'm just gonna drive, right? If at the end of the race he doesn't make the 5 and he loses it, so be it. But they're not gonna give it back.
And I think that's what he did in that's what he was trying in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
But what he realized was the McLaren, he didn't have the pace over the McLaren to try that.
Right.
He didn't have the pace, because when he got the 5-second penalty, he got the lead up to, I believe, 2.8 seconds. And that was never going to be enough to put you ahead of the McLaren, especially when McLaren pitted before you. And no, the McLaren in clean air is actually a monster, so he was never going to get that position. But look, like I said, I've always said, the sport has allowed Max to do certain things, to get away with certain things. And because he knows that, he continued to push it, play as close to the line as possible until they decide that you're too close to the line. But you notice when he gets close to the line or steps over it, and then they say, yeah, you've broken the rules, his reaction to that is not a pleasant one. He then gets really petulant, rants and screams and whatever it is, and then, refuses to do interviews or whatever it is. Like, what are we doing here?
Ultimately, that's on him, man. Ultimately, that's on him. They just got to stick to the rules. And as I said, I have no beef with how he races, because as I said, if it becomes, or if it's illegal, it's for the sport. It's not for Red Bull to be morally right. It's not for Red Bull to use a moral compass to correct the sport's ills, right? It's for the sport to say, hey, this is wrong, and we're gonna nip it in the bud. Right?
Fair enough.
Because at the end of the day, they're going to try to win at any means necessary. There's a lot at play, right? So for them to think, or for people to think Red Bull is just going to be ethical or have a moral standing. Like, no, they're going to race as close as they possibly can to the rules. And if the rules get overstepped, it's for the sport to punish them. It's not for them to So
That's true.
That's my thing with that whole situation, right?
That's true.
And it's just, and the thing is, my beef with Formula One sometimes is that they take too long to make critical decisions.
Yep.
I'm like, guys, you've got all the cameras, you got still cameras, they got a bunch of stuff working. It should not take you 6, 7, 8 laps to make a decision. Someone to switch positions, man. Come on.
You can see it. Look, as soon as you see it, look, dude, you overtook him off track. Give the position back. End of story.
Yeah, they take too long to make certain decisions, and sometimes it messes with the races, man. They need to stop. They need to be. Look at it. Hey, that's how. If we're looking at it on TV and the only view we've got is the view on the TV, we only, unless you're on board with the driver, right? Bro, you know how many cameras are at a racetrack?
Oh, don't tell me. Yeah, I know that.
And you're telling me that we could sit and be like, hey, and you're telling me it needs to take you 5, 6 laps to make a decision like that? Come on now. That's ridiculous. That's on the sport. That's on the sport. It's not even on Red Bull or any of the teams.
Yeah.
Right, so,
but I still believe he forced Lando off track.
Okay. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, and I'm sure there's an argument against as well, right?
Yeah, obviously the Max fans are going to say he did nothing wrong, so Lando fans are going to say something. So
yeah, so let's discuss Ferrari.
Jesus.
Whole Ferrari team, Hamilton, Charles, Ferrari itself. What's going on over there, man? What's going on at Ferrari?
Well, what's going on with Ferrari is what I've always said about Ferrari. Ferrari will be Ferrari. The only thing I know about Ferrari is at some point they're gonna screw up. It's a guarantee with them. They're gonna find a way to screw up. They say never look a gift horse in its mouth. When it comes to Ferrari, they open that horse's mouth and push the head in. That's how they operate. And qualifying, Jesus, they were terrible in qualifying. Lewis got knocked. Lewis on new soft tires was slower, did a slower time than he did in his first run in Q2 on old tires. Same thing for Charles. I was on Lewis's onboard for his second Q2 run, and you know that moment Max had with Lando at that same corner. The moment that happened to Lewis, and the moment that happened, I pretty much knew, yep, that's it. There's no way he's gonna recover this and put it and make it into Q3. Charles barely made it into Q3 himself. The car is an absolute pile of junk. It is, and you're starting to wonder why. Now you know, I've seen other people who are ardent Ferrari fans who write about the team asking the question, why did you change concept in the final year of a regulation? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's a McLaren 2013 situation all over again. McLaren finished 2012 with what was, let's be honest, arguably the best car, which they probably should have won the championship. But, people crashing into people, team mishandling stuff, and etc. Put them in that position. But they turned up to 2013 with a brand new concept in the final year of the regulation, and they basically turned up with a pig. I think this is what Ferrari has turned up with this year. A pig. The car has no redeeming qualities. They can't run it at the right height they designed it to run it at. A la Mercedes and their W13. They have to raise it, and the more they raise it, they have no performance. Charles Leclerc is doing, I think Charles is putting his life on the line with this car to get it where it is in qualifying. We got it in qualifying on Saturday. Because he basically came out and like, I can't go any faster. That's it. That he literally said that was probably the best lap he did all weekend, but then came out when he looked at the gap. He qualified, what did he qualify? He qualified 8th. Charles qualified 8th, and he was half a second from a lap that he said was his best lap of the entire weekend. They qualified behind they qualified behind both Williams. That's how bad the Ferrari was this weekend. It's a terrible car. It has this like I said.
I think I call it an elephant.
Dude,
Right now.
an elephant can run fast. This car, I don't even think this can run fast. Period. You know what I mean? If you look, most bad cars, they have something about them that you can say, okay, at least it has. It could be fast in a straight line. It could be good in high speed corners, slow speed corner. This car is not good in high speed, slow speed, top speed. Look, at one point, Lewis was in the race like, yo, we're so slow in a straight line, the car is too draggy. The car is absolute garbage. It's a miracle. Again, miracle Lewis got that on the podium in the sprint. We all know why that happened. Good strategy call. That facilitated that. But then in the race, started on the hard tires. Once he got past, I believe it was Hajar, and I think he was up in P11. I believe it was P11.
Man was battling with Ocon, bro.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? Once he got by Hajar, he was up in P11. Dude, he spent from lap 4 to lap 21 behind Ocon. 17. Dude, I'm looking at the lap times. I'm looking at the gap. When he got past Hajar, the gap to Ocon was about 1 point something seconds. Dude, that time kept going up. The gap kept increasing. You'd think the gap would reduce. When he finally caught up to Ocon, he couldn't even overtake Ocon.
Yeah, that was crazy.
He couldn't overtake Ocon because the car was slow as hell. Well, he did eventually overtake him on, I believe, lap 22. He got the overtake done. And then Ocon pitted, I believe, at the end of lap 23, lap 23. But he spent basically 14 laps trying to chase down and pass a Haas. A Ferrari trying to pass a Haas using the same customer engine, using the same Ferrari power unit. It was absolutely terrible, mate. and then we go into the strategy call. It's like, what the hell? And then you get to the strategy part of it in the race, like, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with these guys? You got a break with the VSC. You pit. Obviously, it's quite clear Lewis and Charles are on different strategy because Lewis started on the hards, Charles started on the medium. So obviously, Lewis is going to be on what's supposed to be the softer and the quicker tire, right? Once he got past Sainz, the message should have come out right away and like, yo, Charles, let Lewis pass because you guys are on different strategy. Let's see if Lewis can use his tires, to chase down Antonelli in 6. They spent he spent 3-4 laps behind Charles, which basically killed his tires because the tires started to overheat. You heard the radio message like, guys, what we doing? In China, I had no problem moving over. And the thing is, with China, he was the one who made the suggestion that they swap places because he was slow. And when they finally, check in, we'll get back to you. They finally made the decision to swap position. It was too late because his tires were already gone. The best parts of his tires were used up in those 3 laps. Post-race, Jensen Button said the same thing. Spending 1 lap behind Charles spikes the tires and pretty much kill the tires. So when he finally got past, they finally decided to let him pass. He had no pace. Charles could keep up with him. Yeah. And then Charles started to complain about his tires overheating. It was a complete mess. Lewis, you can hear the annoyance in Lewis' voice. And it cracked me up when he went like, yo, have some tea whilst you're at it. Because like you guys seem to be like, you're it's always when critical moments are right, we're checking. Which, dude, are we all watching the same friggin' race? And then you have Fred Vasseur coming out. Yeah, but I think we performed good. What?
There's nothing about that race. There's no point in time in this. That's.
Yo, and remember I said it to you, you know, if they turn up next year and that car is no good, he's getting fired. Because the decision to switch concept this year was his. He's the team principal. He signed off on it. He allowed them to convince him to sign off on it. Look, obviously we're just speculating, right? So we don't know what's going on in the background. But to sit there and agree to, let's go to a brand new concept, pull rod front suspension in the final year of a set of regulation that we didn't even get, we've been struggling in. The one good year we had, we finished 14 points off the championship, and you thought, let's reinvent the wheel. Let's reinvent the wheel. That's literally what they did. And it's just like, ugh.
To you on your spaces, I would really love to be a fly on the wall in these Ferrari meetings to kind of understand the chain of thought, how they plan to go into a weekend, all this stuff, just to kind of get a gauge of, because the amount of errors that you see and just the amount of F-ups that you see from Ferrari week in and weekend out, you're like, come on, guys, like,
what are we doing?
Y'all discussing these meetings?
Dude, I don't want to be a fly on the wall. I want to be me in that meeting. I want to stand up in that meeting so they can see me, so I can be like, what? And the funny thing is, you listen to Jensen Button post-race, and Jensen Button is saying, yo, these are the things that are discussed in the race. Because obviously, it was already planned that one driver was going to start on the hards, one going to be on the mediums. So then there must be at a point where in that meeting, you're going to say, well, look, Charles, if a situation arises where Lewis is right behind you on his medium tires, we're going to ask you to move over. So that should have been all of these, because they all run simulations, right? So that must have been in your simulation. And because if you look at the Pirelli tire strategy, they only gave you two options. You do the mediums for 22 laps, and then you do the hards for 35 laps. Or you do the hards for 35 laps, medium for 22 laps. So there wasn't any much variations in the strategy. That was it. It was a clear one-stop race. So you would have said to Charles, this might end up being a situation. But you had both drivers not knowing what's going on. Oh, this was the best part. When they said to Charles, Lewis will let you pass at turn 17, right? When Lewis didn't let him pass, they then come back, okay, we're going to try again at turn 11. And at which point Charles says, since we didn't do it at turn 17, what's the point? Don't bother. But they didn't tell Lewis they were going to let Charles pass at turn 17 the first time around.
Amen.
So you tell one driver something, but the other guy don't have a clue what's going on. There was a video when I don't know whose Ferrari it was, in Park Fermé, where Lewis walked up to Charles and kind of like pat him on his back, and you can see there was despondent, I think that's a word, on the body language. Is like, yo, what the fuck just happened? You look at Charles in the press conference. Charles looked like a man that's broken, dude. Ferrari has broke. I said it to you before. Charles is a broken man.
He needs to go to another team with his talent.
Yeah, but where's he going to go? Where's the path for him to end up in another team? I mean, the only place he could go is if Max decides to leave Red Bull and goes to Aston Martin. Then a seat might open up at Red Bull. Because there's no way Red Bull's going to have two alpha males in the same team. We know that already. Mercedes has their driver lineup set. McLaren has theirs set. Where's Charles? where's Charles going to go? Because again, it keeps coming back to the things I've always been saying. I've said this for like maybe 2 or 3 years now. It's going to come to a point whereby the question is going to be, who gets fed up first?
How long is
Charles or Ferrari?
How long is Lando signed for?
I think to 28, I believe. And I think Charles is roughly up to the same time as well. So, again, Charles and Fred Vasseur coming out and then saying, oh, they perform. And then he keeps talking about, I believe in the potential of this car. What potential? What are you seeing that no one else is seeing?
To me, the car seems like it's fundamentally flawed. And when the car is
It
fundamentally
is.
flawed, you can't fix it. There's no upgrade that's going to fix that.
They say, you know, the guys who follow them and write up about them said there's upgrades coming at Imola, and I believe another package coming in Spain, because I think Spain is after Imola, or is it after Monaco? Because the next race is a triple header. So yeah, so it's Imola, Monaco, and then Spain June 1st, right?
Yeah.
Both drivers don't have a clue what's going on. I don't think either driver believes they can remedy they can turn this around. It's not like last year where they were good at the start of the year. They had good tire management. They were there. They were on pace, etc. Right? And then that fall off from Canada, I think, up until Spa, right? And then they made that mid-season recovery thereafter.
Exactly what I said. Last year's car was fundamentally good. This year,
once they fix the problem, that's what I'm saying. Once they fix the problem that was affecting them from Canada up until that, I believe, a 5-race span, they would have been all right. They were fine after that. That's how they were basically a Carlos Sainz. I believe it was Baku, result away from winning the championship. And you look at the points table, dude. I don't believe they don't have 100 points. They don't have. I believe they're on what 90 constructors points. They have 94 points. They're on
Red Bull.
Dude, they're closer to Williams in the constructors points wise than they are to McLaren. 94 to 246 points. That's not. And again, this is why. And this is
that the stat you're looking at?
Mm-hmm.
That's not even the bad one.
Which one is?
The worst one is the fact that Red Bull is ahead of them with one car.
Jesus Christ. That's. What is it? Red Bull is on 105. So
points.
What's that? That's that. 11 points.
11 points.
With one car. Well, granted, they got disqualified from 2 races, so they probably would have been ahead of Red Bull without those disqualifications. But even so, that's beside the point. And this is why when I tell people, I don't like...
2 drivers got disqualified.
2 drivers got disqualified in China. And when I tell people, I don't trust this team, there's nothing about this team that gives me any confidence. And why I keep saying, I'm at peace knowing that Lewis will win an 8th championship, because I don't trust this team to get anything right.
So we're not going to go down that route, because you say that every week, right? I'm quite sure the people get the picture that this guy does not trust Ferrari. I've got my friends in Ferrari too. And
this is
things, man.
And here's the thing, I put out a tweet yesterday, and if this happens, dude, oh God. Mercedes in 22 messed up Lewis's streak of win and pole in a season. It finished at 15 seasons, right? He's currently on an 18-year streak, which means that's from he's been in the sport of having a podium, at least one podium in the season. Based on what we're seeing from the Ferrari right now, it's conceivable that he might not see the podium this year in a main race. Forget the sprint. He might not see the podium in a main race this year. And if that happens, everybody at Ferrari should be fired. Because the podium, because this is the problem with Fred. He keeps going, because he keeps talking about car potential, etc. He basically said in Jeddah, they were probably the fastest car in Jeddah. Sorry, did we all watch the same race? Yeah, this weekend, he then comes out and says, on pace, they were of similar pace to Mercedes and Red Bull. Did we actually watch the same race?
And on that note, we end the Ferrari segment. All right, we kind of touched on them briefly. It's Williams, best race of the season. They got double points finish.
Yeah, I believe they've had double points finish before, but in terms of when you look at where they qualified, was it 6th and 7th? I believe it was. Oh God, I can't remember. My head's gone. My Ferrari messed up my head right now. They qualified what? 6th and 7th.
6th and 7th.
I mean, jeez, in front of both my Ferraris. And then, they had a double points finish. Albon drove a brilliant race to finish. Where did he finish? 5th.
In the race?
5th, yeah. Finished 5th.
5th, yeah.
I believe it's the second time he's finished 5th this season. Or it could be. Yeah, I believe it's the second time he's finished 5th this season. He finished 5th in... where did he finish 5th? In Australia as well. So it's the second time he's finished 5th this year. So for Williams, and again, you have to tip your hat to James Vowles, because he walked into a team that basically the people were saying they were still using Excel sheets to keep track of certain information, which is kind of like, yo, that's a joke. And he's put them in a position now whereby I think it's safe to say they're probably the 5th fastest team on the grid right now. Yeah. Easily. McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, Williams. Then I'd probably put the Racing Bull. Again, one Racing Bull, because Liam Lawson's still stinking up the place. He hasn't scored a point yet. Was it Lawson hasn't scored any point? Let me just check, just to be certain. Yeah, Lawson still hasn't scored a point yet. Yeah. And then it's a toss-up any given weekend between Haas and Alpine. That's it. So right now, Sir James Vowles has performed miracles with this Williams team, and hats off to him for that, for first-time team principal. It's gone in and changed the culture, changed the mindset, everything, and they're operating better than Ferrari. Let's be honest.
Which is what Ferrari needs, but as I said, we're not going to go back down there. So that's it on Williams. Yeah. So in the news, Mick Doohan, the possibility he could get replaced. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's a possibility. I think it's a definitive no, because news broke today, and if Andrew Benson picks it up, it's true, and they pretty much report that he could be Imola, which is next week, replaced by Franco Colapinto, which I believe we did a test, our preview podcast, and you asked the question, would he be the first person to get replaced this year? I believe that you did ask that question, and lucky enough, it wasn't him. But based on all the reports that's coming out, he's gone. And
I guess it's him based on rookies, because Liam Lawson technically is not a rookie.
Yeah, he's not a rookie. Definitely that.
So in terms of the pure rookie, as in the rookie sense, first season on the grid, yeah.
Yeah. And he had that blow up. Was it in the sprint qualifying or the main qualifying? I can't remember which one. He had a massive blow up over the radio on the team, and whoever his personal trainer, whoever responsible for him, kind of had to cool him down when he was walking back to the garage, and you kind of knew. Yeah, dude, you're already on a knife edge And you're going to blow up like that with Flavio Briatore in charge?
You don't get to speak to the team like that when you haven't bought them anything.
Exactly.
The situation that he's in, he needed to stay humble and work
Yeah.
with the team.
Yeah.
Come back to the garage and ask him, hey guys, what happened? Let them explain it to him. And if he wants to have a bust up in the back, bro.
Over the radio. He was, dude went off.
Why with Max as his tantrums or any other driver, Charles or whoever, George and them, at least they got race wins, they got champions.
They have credit. They have credit in the bank.
They got credit in the bank. They have some deposits.
Exactly.
Yeah, dude, want to make withdrawals and he ain't even deposit nothing.
Dude, your bank account has cobwebs in it. And you're gonna blow up. My man went off over the radio, and I'm like, yo. So when I heard this, I'm like, yeah, I think that's what kind of like that's pretty much kind of like sealed his faith.
Yeah. You either get jump or get pushed, and it seems like that allowed them to push him.
He was pretty much, when they say what the plank in pirate movies, he had one toe on the edge of that plank. He was balancing on one toe and decided to blow up, and it's like, yeah, so, and plus, it was kind of like, he went into the season knowing he could be replaced. The moment that they announced they'd signed Colapinto.
Which could not have been good for his mental, bro.
Yeah, but at the same time, you also have to ask yourself the question.
You know that type of situation, so now you always put your best foot forward.
Yeah, but that's not it. You ask the question, what kind of contract did he sign? What was in the contract you signed that the team would replace you after 6 races? What was it?
Because even if it's probably not even after 6 races, it's probably just, hey, you need to be at a certain point, and if at a certain point you're not there, we could replace you. So it could be after 2 races. You never know. It could have been after 5 races.
And he's still pointless. Gasly has scored only 7 points for the team. He's still pointless. So you pretty much performing terribly. You have no points, and you're gonna blow up on the radio like that with Flavio Briatore in charge. Yeah, you pretty much kind of knew that was gonna happen.
He blew up on the radio like that, and probably even if the team had got it right, it would have probably ended up same place.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
hey man, the thing is with F1, you cannot hide. So you can't be like, yo, the team did this, because everyone is going to look at your previously. So like, right, without the team, you weren't performing well. So
yeah, he's
F1,
definitely gone.
Those things. You can't hide behind those things because it's all about lap times.
He's definitely gone. And I think, you know what? Who might follow him next? Maybe not, probably at the end of the season, Liam Lawson.
Yeah, I could see that.
Liam Lawson right now, Isaac Ajar has 5 points. Lawson has yet to score a single point.
And the thing is with Liam, right? Is it that the pace has just stepped away from him from when he deputized for Ricciardo? Because
he didn't deputize for Ricciardo. He took over Ricciardo's seat.
No, initially, remember he had deputized for him when Ricciardo had the accident.
Oh, yeah.
That was his first go around.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now he doesn't look not even close to that driver.
His confidence is gone. He got replaced after what?
Just think
3
about it,
races.
Right? When he came in and deputized for Ricciardo, we were looking at, not saying he wasn't the next Max or Hamilton or Charles but you look at it like, okay, he's doing better than what Ricciardo was doing.
Yeah, but he was still getting his ass beat by Tsunoda.
Right. But he was still doing better than Ricciardo at the time.
Okay, no, where did he replace Ricciardo?
It was when Ricciardo that crashed and broke his hand. I can't remember what race it was.
Yeah, but he was still in the V-Carb at that time. Yeah, so he was still in the V-Carb.
Yeah, so
it wasn't the main team. But, dude, his confidence is gone. They replaced him after 2 races. They swapped position with him at UK after 2 races. And if you look at it,
but you think that
the things he failed to do in the Red Bull, Tsunoda is doing. And the things that Tsunoda was doing in the Racing Bull, he's not doing.
Yeah, you could see that his head is gone because even in a team as the V car, which is more like
Racing Bull,
but we should be like as they say, a more quote unquote relaxed environment compared to the Red Bull.
Yeah, because he was there last year. He did 11 races there, so he's supposed to he's familiar with that environment.
Yeah, so and that's probably a team where it's more calm, so you could spend some time getting your head right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Doesn't seem like that's the situation, but
his head's gone, and I genuinely believe he could be replaced at the end of the year in that team.
All right, and let's see what happens because yeah, we have man. Why do you keep adding this to our set list, man? Alonso.
Dude, I have to keep the agenda going, man. I can't let it see it, man. Because you know why I do it? Because all this talk about Lewis and his age and his performance, etc., etc. But no one wants to talk about the fact that Alonso, if he doesn't score a point next week or in Monaco, he would have had his worst start in Formula One history. I'd ignore his first year with the Minardi when he did the entire season in Minardi and he basically didn't have a score point. But from when did he come back in Formula One? I believe it was 2003 or 2004 when he came back to Renault, because he was test driver for Renault. Then he got the seat alongside, I believe, Fizzy. No, his worst start to a season was 2017. He went 7 races without scoring a point. He's currently on race 6. No points. And you can't see where that point is coming from. I saw this guy some data analysis guy, put up a sheet that the Aston Martin, every team, I think they did from 2003, they compared the performance to 2003. And Aston Martin is the only team that went slower than the 2003 time. They've been going backwards. Absolute backwards. They finished, him and Lance Stroll finished 15th and 16th out of 16 finishers.
At least Lance Stroll got 14 points.
13
points.
Yeah, Lance Stroll is the only one that's bringing home the bacon for them right now. And it's that what's that? Yeah, 14, because he scored. Where did he? Yeah, hold on. So Lance Stroll scored points in the sprint.
Oh, let me see this.
It has to be the sprint.
He's 10th in the championship. He's tied on points with Ocon. And then up the road is Albon at 30 points. So that's not a bad job from Lance Stroll.
So he scored points in Miami, right? Where did he score points? It must have been the sprint. He finished 5th in the sprint because of all the penalties. So even when teams are getting penalized, well, Alonso did get Lawsoned. Let's be honest, Lawson kind of like took him out. I'm not even gonna, because I believe he was running in the points at that time. But I sent Lawson a message and told him, if you take him out of the race, I won't put my tweets out about you not, messing up the place. But again, and this is why I asked the question: when will Aston Martin decide that they need to move on from Alonso?
All right then. Yeah. As I said, we're never going to spend time on that because we did it for the past few, man. Alonso, we need to give Alonso a break from the pod, bro. Because
I'll let him off in the next two races.
Yeah,
but if we get to Spain and he hasn't scored any points, we're gonna bring it back up.
Lance Stroll is sitting 10th in the championship.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bad job.
Not a bad job, and I mean that has Aston. We're in the constructors. That puts Aston where. The constructors, they're currently 7th. 7th. I mean, funny enough, every single team has scored points this year, which is kind of good for the sport because It normally they're taking them much longer, or not all of them would have scored. But the fact that after 6 races, every team has scored points, that's good. That's definitely a good thing, a good sign.
Alonso needs it because
it's not looking good out there, bruv. It's not looking good, bruv.
You don't want that blotch on your copybook, bro, that you go into retirement having getting your ass whooped by Lance Stroll, bro.
Lance Stroll of all people, dude, the Nepo baby. Because Lance Stroll is definitely going to be at Aston Martin next year. But again, they need to ask the question, at what point do you decide we need to move on from Alonso?
Man is our owner driver.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. All right, and yeah, so yeah. How do you rate the race? Does it lay out your podium so far? We had 6 races.
Okay, what did we have the last time?
I think you had. I remember I'd have to re-listen.
Dude, you're gonna have to write these things down here.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to write these down. But I think let me look at the calendar and I'll tell you. Okay. Japan was definitely a no-no. So I believe it was Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and was it Australia? Yeah. I think Saudi Arabia top for the podium. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, this is my podium. Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Miami. Because this was, I think it's fair to say this was the best Miami Grand Prix we've had since it's been on the calendar. I think this is the best one we've had. So I'm putting Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Miami. That's my top 3.
All right, that's a good top 3. And yeah, just before we go, just shout out to McLaren. We mentioned it in your space. Kudos to McLaren. 2 years ago, they got lapped in Miami, man.
Dude,
right,
2023, Lando finished 1 minute and 27 seconds behind Max. The McLaren won the race this time by 37 seconds. So when you do the numbers, within 2 years, they've gained over 2 minutes.
Kudos to McLaren. Congrats to them. That's a big job. That they're doing the thing. So congrats to McLaren, the McLaren F1 team. They're doing their thing.
But hold on. But just to add something slightly to that, just in regarding McLaren, because I read there's a article came out today from I think it's Martin Noble or Jonathan Noble. I can't remember one of them, for the race, where again over the weekend the McLaren rear brake cooling system was checked because teams are complaining that the design is illegal or whatever it is. But again, the FIA has checked it again meticulously and said, yeah, it's a clever system, but it doesn't contravene the rules. So we know which team was the team that complained.
Yeah.
So we don't even have to call names.
Yeah, but we're tied for time. We're going to discuss that regarding those type of practices, about calling out teams. It's like, I read something where Zach Brown was saying about that type of playing, right? That type of behavior. And he's right. He mentioned something about there should be consequences.
Yeah.
Did you read that?
No, I haven't read it, but I've heard
Zach Brown was basically saying, when you're going to jump out the window and accuse another team of, say, cheating or just saying certain things, outlandish stuff, right? Let's say it's Red Bull. It's Christian Horner that's doing it.
Of course.
He always does
everybody
it
knows that.
And his team is not winning. And I'm not going to put it down to the spirit of racing. That's just pure nastiness, right?
Yeah, because when they're dominating, no one says, oh, we suspect them of doing something illegal.
So hear me out. Whilst I'll say what Max does is racing, not giving up the position, that's down to messing with the rules and see how far you could push. But the things that Christian Horner does, like stuff like this, that's just straight up nastiness.
Yep.
I do not like it, right? So what Zach Brown was basically saying was, hey, if you have that issue, you need to make an official complaint, put it on paper.
Yep.
And his idea was to say, hey, if you make these outlandish claims and you file it officially, and it turns out that your outlandish claims are so far-fetched it's not even close, it should be like what sport
Monetary
is it?
fine.
Yeah, where's what sports is it where you lose your timeout if you? It's NFL, right? Where if you challenge and
Yeah,
it
if you
turns out
challenge and the challenge is wrong, you lose you lose
so
the
what Zach is saying,
challenge and you lose
they
the
should,
timeout.
yeah, what Zach is saying, they should do that. And if your stuff is so outlandish, you should get a penalty to your cost cap. And he said at that point, people will stop doing it.
True. I agree with that. Penalty to the cost cap is a bit harsh, but then again, because we know
you gotta
these
remember,
things.
when you're out here telling people that you think people are cheating, bro, that's also their brand you're messing with.
Yeah, because we know in the background that questions are constantly being asked about cars, other cars, things that people say on other cars, etc. But I agree with you. It's when you start publicly saying, "Oh, we think they're doing something." It's similar to 2021 with Mercedes. Remember, they were accusing Mercedes of flexing the rear wing, and it was doing something. They took pictures, and they showed scratch marks and all these things. That to the
Way
point,
back, yeah.
to the point where they took the Mercedes wing in Brazil, because the same wing that Lewis got disqualified for, they took that wing to check it. They checked it. They had it for like 2 weeks. They checked. Red Bull were adamant that they were doing something illegal, and Mercedes passed every test, but they were still in the media putting these claims out there. And FIA said, "Look, there's nothing illegal." I think in situations like that, I agree. You have to put up, if you feel like they're definitely doing something wrong,
Put it on paper.
put it on paper. Make an official complaint. But if you go to the media and you start insinuating these things,
yeah,
you should be held accountable for that.
For it. Whereas like it hurts you. At that point, you will stop. Because not only that, remember, even with the double diffuser, it was Christian Horner first. And even when you watch the Brown documentary, he was shouting the loudest. So
it's always him. It's always him. It's a thing. I think it's a sense of entitlement. I think it's a case of when other teams comes up with innovative ideas that they didn't think about. They immediately think, "Oh yeah, you're doing something. You're cheating." I remember, was it, when did Mercedes come up with the DAS system? Was it 2020? When the DAS, there's a part in the Drive to Survive video, right, for that year, where Christian Horner said, he basically came out and said, "Yeah, it's illegal," and he said the reason why they kept saying it and they kept doing what they were doing was because they wanted to annoy, destabilize Mercedes, right? So it's a tactic from him. Go back to 2022, when the second test of 2022, when Mercedes came out with the no side pod W13. Christian Horner basically told a reporter, what's his name, Tobias Gruner from Amos, that that Mercedes was illegal. And when Gruner reported on it, he then came out and said, "No, he didn't say that." The press, Red Bull released a statement saying, "No, that's not what he said." But Tobias Gruner stood his ground and said, "Yeah, he said to us that Mercedes was illegal." Yeah. And you're like, how can you say that? The car hasn't even touched the track, and you immediately go. So when it comes to Red Bull, when they're quick, it's very rarely you hear anyone say, "Oh, okay, they're doing something so dodgy. That's why they're quick." Everybody, Toto Wolff came out recently and said, spoke about the McLaren and that rear brake dog thing, and said, "You know what? We can match them over a lap, but in a race we can't, because they're able to get the tires to just last forever and ever, and it just work. It's like they're not doing anything illegal. They've just built a good car." Christian Horner can't do that.
Yeah, and you got to respect Toto for that, man. But yeah, we're gonna wrap. On that note.
Gonna be over schedule, but
yeah, it's always the case. We're not tied to any. This is not conventional media where you're tied to a time slot.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, on that note, we're gonna end this week's episode of the Grand Prix Project podcast, which is the
Miami GP race review.
Miami Grand Prix race review. So once again, if you want to follow us on X, our Twitter, aka X, right? you could follow us at the GP Project Pod. That's on X if you want to follow us. We be posting on there, tweeting stuff on there, so you could follow that. And also on Instagram, you want to follow us on Instagram, you could also follow us at the Grand Prix Project Podcast. And we also have a backup page, which is the Grand Prix Project, right? So we have 2 Instagram pages. The Grand Prix Project Podcast is the main page. The Grand Prix Project is the backup page, right? So as I said, please leave your comments. Please give us a follow. Please let us know what you think about the pod. We're just working. We're just recording every week, putting out our episodes, and any feedback would be welcome, because we can only get better.
Good or bad?
Yeah. This week there's MotoGP this week.
Where are they this week?
French Grand Prix.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So, Zarco and Quartararo's home race, right? So, and it's a movie in the French Grand Prix. It's always the French and the Spanish Grand Prix are just, when it comes down to like the atmosphere is just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's on this weekend. So y'all could tune into that. We're gonna have the review for that, and we just need to find more time in the week to fit in the Grand Prix race, to start fitting in the previews, right? And we're going to have to figure out how we're going to get that in. If it's even to make them like super short, like 20, 25 minutes max, just so we could fit them in and have more content.
Cool.
Yeah, please give us a like. Please give us a follow. We appreciate everyone that listens from wherever you are. We've touched every single continent except the Oceania so far, but I'm sure we'll touch there at some point.
Wherever you are in the Oceania, you better listen to us, or else I'll come and visit you. Remember, my name's Thanos. I've got the Infinity Stones.
They're not gonna listen because you either go at Jack Miller, who's from Australia, you're busting up Liam Lawson, who's from New Zealand. Right?
Yeah, but I'm praising Oscar. Come on.
Yeah, so let's see if our love for Oscar actually changes that, right?
Well, I'm giving Oscar his
and
props.
you actually you the Honey Badger used to beat Ricciardo bad, and so people over in the Oceania, they ain't rocking with us right now because of you, bro. Right? But hey, I'm over here. I ain't got no beef. I ain't got no beef with Jack Miller or Ricciardo. Or
Tell you what, I'm not gonna apologize.
All right, and so that's it. It's a wrap. Grand Prix Project Podcast. Thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for liking. Thank y'all for subscribing.
Thank y'all for sharing.
Yep, we out.
Thank you for listening to the Grand Prix Project podcast.